please.
Feel for the people rank and file. Cringe.
The same, so bad, so bad. We should give us a staff.
I took a corner. You're fine. I just took a little corner. No,
I can move down this.
no, it's fine. I just took a little corner. Oh, no, I'm fine.
Ready?
Let's do it.
All right, good evening, everybody. Time to call this meeting to order, which I will do right now. Welcome to the February 2022 Planning Commission meeting. One quick announcement before we get going is this kind of, it applies to the commissioners. We were notified that some of the, we need to talk into our microphones. Okay, the recording has been, there's been some trouble getting the sound if you don't get close enough to it. So if you don't mind leaning over a little bit when you speak, that would help us out. Okay, Jessica, can you call roll?
Yes. Wendy Birmingham,
Here?
Robin Bridges,
Here.
Phil Chancellor,
Here.
Jana Jager,
Here.
Marcus Marshall,
Here?
Warren McCord,
Here.
Nonette Reese,
Here.
Bob Rittenbaugh.
Here.
Okay, before we get started, I want to just kind of go over our kind of rules of business rules here a little bit, just to familiarize everybody with how we're going to proceed. So, the commission's going to be presented with agenda items by the staff, and then they'll be able to answer comments or questions for clarification from the commission. And then if the person that's representing the item if they have something they would like to say at that time, then that's a time to do that. Then I will open a public hearing as required. Some things do not require a public hearing, some do. And if you would like to speak on those items at that time, please come forward. And before you get back to your seat, if you don't mind signing in on that piece of paper right there in front of you on that table. Once everybody's spoken, I will close the public hearing, and then we will have deliberation here on the commission, and we will make motions and a vote. The commission is going to vote based on state and local laws, the Comprehensive Plan 2020, and the basic good of the community. Now, there is one additional sort of thing that we deal with here, and that is subdivision plats. Now, we as the Planning Commission, by Alabama statute, this Planning Commission is the final approval authority for these plats. And so we're going to be basically, with regard to these plats, the commission acts as an administrative body, and it's bound by limitations that are covered in state laws, the zoning ordinance, and our subdivision regulations that we adopted earlier. And while public hearings are required on the preliminary plats, and we welcome any and all public comment for that, just want to remind you that our authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds specific requirements that are codified in laws and regulations. And if they are, we're going to vote for that. And so I ask again in that same situation, 5 minutes to speak if you would like to. And then finally, the last point I would like to make is that every other decision that we make here, every other vote, is a recommendation to the city council, and this will come again before the city council at another time. And we can, there'll be scheduled over the next, couple of weeks sort of thing. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is citizens communication. Now, this is a time that if anybody wants to come forward and speak on anything, including the consent agenda, this is a time to come forward. We have two items on a consent agenda tonight. One is the Williamson property annexation. One is the Chapel Heights final plat approval, and then we have meeting minutes. And so if anybody would like to come forward now to speak on those, please come. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Okay, now we're on to the consent agenda. Is there any comments from staff on these?
Mr. Chairman, we discussed pulling, I believe it was number 2, Chapel
Right.
Heights,
Right.
to add the conditions staff talked about.
Okay, let's have a motion to remove that from the consent agenda.
I move to remove final plat for Chapel Heights off consent agenda.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We'll pull number 2 from the agenda and address it separately. So now I'm looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the packet and regular meeting minutes for the January meetings, as well as the annexation of Williamson property, PL 2021-00865.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, we'll move on to final plat Chapel Heights, PL 2021-00684. Mr. Howell, if you can explain what we're going to do with this.
Yes, sir. Good evening. All right, so this is a final plat of a conservation subdivision located southwest of the Pierce Chapel Road and Lee Road 27 intersection. It is highlighted there. You can see it's on the far southeast corner of the city, and includes approximately 80 acres worth of property being subdivided into 31 lots. Of those 31, 27 will be single-family lots, and the rest will be open space. Conservation subdivisions have a requirement for 50% of its gross area to be included as open space, and they're providing that and then some. The final number is 55%, so they meet that requirement. They've also met the other requirements of conservation subdivisions with legal protections that have already been reviewed by staff to include legal. The purpose for requesting it to be removed from the consent agenda was in order to be able to make one additional comment that wasn't included in your packet, that being the plat needs to reflect its final plat status by labeling it as a final plat,
Okay.
subject to your questions.
Questions for clarification or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve PL 2021-00648 with staff comments and the addition of the final plat label.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the final plat with an addition of the final plat label. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, motion carries. On to new business. Okay, this is a preliminary plat, Northgate Subdivision, preliminary plat 2022-002. Mr. Kipp.
Good evening, Commissioners. The request before you is for a preliminary plat approval to subdivide 2 lots into a 127-lot performance subdivision on approximately 31 acres. Property is owned by Bottle Land Investment and Northgate Development, represented by Precision Surveying. The subject property is located near the intersection of US Highway 280 and North College Street, and is within a planned development district known as the Bottle, which you recommended for approval last fall. This would constitute the first phase of development, which would include 42 single-family homes, 40 twin home lots, 38 townhome units, and new public streets. The proposed development is consistent with the approved master development plan, and the plat meets the requirements of the subdivision regulations, pending comments that are included in your staff report. Did receive one communication from the neighbor to the south with concerns about drainage and proximity of homes. Other than that, staff recommends approval with conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. The representative like to say anything on this?
Good afternoon. Appreciate y'all's time again. Yeah, the Logan recapture.
State your name and address.
Oh,
please.
sorry. Yeah, this is my name's TJ Johnson. I'm with Holland Homes. We'll be building the homes out there in the event the subdivision is completed. But appreciate the opportunity. Like Logan said, this is in line with the master plan we brought before you last fall. This is the first phase of development we hope to perform, and there are some minor tweaks, as you'll see, just based on further engineering in the time since we last met. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, let me just ask a quick question. What was, is there something behind keeping the two cul-de-sacs and not connecting there at the south end of that property?
Yes, sir. Just some elevation differences between those two roads.
Okay, that's what drove it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and it sounds like the neighbors to the south are here tonight as well. We're able to put a detention pond on that south side, west of their home. That'll also take some heat off the drainage concerns, hopefully.
Okay. All right.
With that elevation change, the pedestrian path would still be okay. I see
Yes.
that's a condition.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this requires a public hearing. At this time, anybody would like to speak on this item, please come forward. And before you sit back down, please sign in. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions for clarification or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 3 with all staff comments.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat PP 2022-002 with staff comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 4, a waiver to design standards, Heart of Auburn, WZ 2022-02. Ms. Robinson.
Good evening. All right, maybe you can hear me now. All right, this is a request from Auburn Orange LLC. They are represented by Brett Basquin with Foresight Group. They are requesting 2 waivers to the downtown design and development standards. The first waiver is a waiver of 20% to the required 80% for an enclosed connection between buildings to allow a fenestration of 60%. And the second request is a waiver to the permitted building materials, cladding materials, to allow cementitious board panels as well as horizontal lap siding. The property is located on the block bound by Gay, College, and Samford, with the exception of the little corner. It is proposed to be a multiple unit development. And this was not in your packet on Monday, but you can see, and I don't know, oh, there we go. Look at there. All right, so here is the CVS. This is the building where Nukes is.
Right.
The private boulevard goes from South College to South Gay. This is the existing retail that will remain. The new building will be in this L shape right here with the parking deck enclosed. And let's see. Okay, here is the facade. And you can't really get a good picture of what it looks like here because it's so zoomed out. So we have provided these renderings. And how do you zoom in on this?
Double click that top button.
I can hear them now.
All right. Oops. It's not doing it. Oh, there we go. So you can kind of see here the horizontal lap siding here. And as the staff report says, that is only used on the non-primary structures or facades. So this area here is set back away from College. This is,
Oh, is that the,
yeah, right here is where Taziki's is.
okay.
So this is an exit only drive. So this is the private, one of the private boulevards that's just an exit. This is the corner of Samford and College. And you can see this area is mostly brick on the College front, as well as the Samford front. In the center here, that is going to be cementitious panels. This is also an exhibit from Samford. The area up top are panels with the bottom half brick. And this is the South Gay rendering. So this is the open area of the lot that is not included in this development. There's really a house there, but it's not an open field. But there's the drive that comes out, the exit only from the parking deck. And
that
this
the
is
boulevard?
and I'm sorry, what?
Is that the boulevard?
The boulevard is actually right here.
Oh, okay.
So a majority of this facade, except for the bottom floor, is either lap siding or the panels. Yes, sir.
For the record, let's make sure everybody doesn't misunderstand. They're not clearing across the street as this rendering shows. They merely left it clear so the building can show.
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody knows that.
So this is an exhibit of the fenestration for all three facades. This is a zoom in on the south elevation along East Samford. And the waiver is not for all of the fenestration, only the fenestration that's required on the connection, which is 80%, which is just this center portion here. We require 80%. They are providing 60%. And the only reason they cannot meet the 80 is because of the spaces between the floors. This is the facade along Gay, same situation. This is an aerial, just showing where the property is. And staff does recommend approval with conditions, provided that the facades are constructed in a manner consistent with plans that were provided to the DDRC. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Mr. Basquin, would you have anything to say?
Good evening, Brett Basquin with the Foresight Group, representing the property owner. We have been before the DDRC 3 times. I've worked on multiple projects, and most of the time we've only been going twice, but we've gone back 3 times, and it's not. And we've been working hand in hand with them. They understand the importance of where this building sits in regards to the city, and so they've been very hands-on. Just like it notes in the packet, the DDRC is actually recommending what we're proposing. If you remember when we redid the guidelines here, the cementitious panels and lap siding was taken out as a material. But going through this process and talking to them, you know, they support the material being used, but in the way that they talked about it, that is acceptable, but they want to make sure that the context that it's used and that it's not overused. And so that is where they're concerned and why they wanted to have, I guess, a little bit more say in regards to how that's being used. So they are in approval on this. The other part of that is, you know, in going through the DDRC, they really asked us to really beef up the College and Samford frontages, because that's the gateway and the entryway, and they felt like they wanted to step down a little bit more as we got towards the Gay Street side, as feedback from the DDRC, and I felt like we've accomplished that. On the building breaks, where the buildings breaks and it's the 80% fenestration requirement, and Katie mentioned this at Packet, but I just want to make sure. I mean, we're floor to ceiling glass in these things. The only thing that's not is really just the floor joists, and covering up the floor joists with something other than glass is the only thing that's there. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, this does not require a public hearing, so any questions for clarification or motion?
Well, I just would like to say that I think it looks like a beautiful project, and I'm grateful that people are willing to work with the DDRC to find something that is attractive and still meets the standards that we've set, or meets their satisfaction anyway. It looks a lot better than some of the things that we have already, so thank you, Brett, and whoever. As part of that, I would be delighted to move to approve this case. Waiver to Downtown Development Design Standards, WZ 2022-002. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the waiver of downtown development and design standards. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Number 5, item number 5. This is another waiver to design standard requirements. This one's at 129 North College Street, WZ 2022-003. Mr. Howell.
Yes, okay, so in some ways, similar to the case you just heard, this the applicant also wants is requesting two different waivers to the downtown design standards. The first one is for fenestration at the ground story, a little bit different from the previous one. But then the second one is another waiver to cladding materials. It's located at 129 North College Street in the Urban Core District with College Edge overlay. The specific request is for the fenestration is a 13.6% reduction to the 50% requirement for ground story fenestration, to allow a ground story fenestration of 36.4%. And then the second waiver is one permitting cladding materials to allow cement board panels and metal siding and trim to be included as building elements. Here's a site plan. You have North College here, you have Wright Street here, and down further below you have Magnolia, separated from this development from other buildings that are existing. The proposed mixed-use building will be located here facing North College at a zero foot setback, so it'll be right up on the property line as would be appropriate in an urban setting. In the rear, you have parking for the residences that would be part of this mixed-use development. I'll first go over the cladding materials. This is our elevation that's been provided by the architect. It includes all 4 different angles. This particular one, the top side is looking from North College at the building, so you're looking at the front of the building. It's clad primarily in white brick and would include some metal panels that would be in the color palette of what the tenant is anticipating. And will also include some cement panels on the top story that's stepped back from the rest of the plane of the building. The metal panels themselves and the cement boards are on the front would be the materials that would be requiring a waiver. As you look around to the side, down below, you're looking at it from the north, so you're looking at it from the parking deck. You have brick along the ground story here, and then also stepped back net behind a second story open area would be more cement boards, cementitious boards for that particular area as well. These views are looking at it from the rear as well as from the south, so looking at it from existing buildings or from Wright Street. And the cladding would primarily be the cementitious boards on these sides as well. This is just a run through of the different materials that they're proposing, highlighting the ones that they're seeking waivers for. This rather small image here is a description of the percentage of fenestration on the ground story. The ground story requirement is a 50% glassed area. They are providing a 20-foot ground story, which would have a minimum square footage of glass of 873 square feet, and they're proposing 635 square feet. The reason for their difference is they have a large amount of space that would still have to conform with the sign ordinance requirements, but they have a large amount of area that they need for tenant required advertising area, as well as spandrels and pilasters for the facade. Make things a little bit easier. You can see here what the rendering would be, and you can along the front here. There you have on the front you have this area that would be for the signage. DDRC has already seen this as well. They've gone through 2 different iterations with them. They're in support of the waivers and would like to see it done. So, if you have any questions, pending your questions, the representative and the applicant are here.
Speak. Okay. Okay, this does not require a public hearing either, so look for questions for clarification or a motion.
When's the grand opening?
I'd like to move to approve WZ 2022-003.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this waiver to design standards. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Can I say something real quick too? I do want to say I appreciate these 2 applicants spending so much time with the downtown design review
You're here.
committee ahead of time. It makes it very easy for us when we know that they are in favor of some of these design changes. I think it makes it a little easier for us to understand, and the explanation, while it was short here, was very lengthy during packet meetings. So I appreciate the effort that these applicants are putting into these big projects that have a large impact on our city. So I think that it's important to acknowledge that. And the work of the Downtown Design Review Committee, they put in the time. So I just wanted to say that publicly.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Okay, we don't have other business, but what I would like to do is have a little chairman's communication time here, just to talk briefly about minutes, meeting minutes. It came up in packet, and it's basically how much, what's required in the minutes, and what do we as a commission want to see in the minutes, and so there was some discussion that there was too much in the minutes. And it came from the angle where, if you look at the minutes, we added, staff added all the staff requirements. Conditions. And I guess the argument is, it's kind of I guess I would say there's 3 pieces. One, do you put them all in there? Okay? Do you put in the ones that we change? Because sometimes we add some, and sometimes we subtract some. Or do we leave them all out completely? And so one of the sides of the argument was, especially if it goes to court, it becomes, we, the commission, don't make those conditions. The staff recommends them to us. And so if it the minutes are the first thing that comes out in a court situation, should it happen. And that there was some discussion that was not really where we wanted to head. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out and maybe get some perspective from Steve and what he thinks on it. And
Well, I will say after our discussion, I understand that they are staff-provided conditions. Whether or not they are approved is one thing. I think it's redundant to include them all the time because they already go forward. But if we change something, therefore I feel like, yes, it should be included in the minutes. And
Tend
that's,
to agree with that for sure.
That is also,
Well, keep in mind, these are historical records.
and they do move forward with an entire packet of
And as
information.
long as they're in the files for discovery, and that's when they
Right.
find it.
That's when it matters.
And if you ever are called to be, as a witness as to what you did, it is very helpful to have the detailed file. Now, whether they have to be in the minutes or not, I do not know. But, they're important documents.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to just give you a different perspective on this, if I
Absolutely.
could?
Absolutely.
So, and part of this came up because we've had a change in staff and doing things a little bit differently. And so without even thinking about changing your minutes, when we prepared your last set of minutes, we put the conditions of approval in there. And I did that just naturally without thinking about it, because everywhere I've been for the last 35 years, we always put the conditions of approval in the minutes. Yeah, it doesn't create any more work for you all. We just put them in there, and it's one place that you can go. The records, the minutes are an official record of what the planning commission did. And so by putting them in the official minutes that you adopt, you sign a copy of, it just eliminates that having to go and find a staff report if it, for some reason, it inadvertently wasn't attached for some reason. And it's just all in one location. So to me, it's just what I'm used to, and so it's just a natural thing for me, like breathing, it's what you do. But, so we did put them in there for you. Of course, if they're your minutes, let me say this, they're your minutes, so we're gonna do it however you all want to have it done. But if you didn't include all the conditions of approval, and you just, in your motion, you say, okay, I recommend approval with all the conditions in the staff report. Okay, then, of course, we've got to either attach it or you've got to go find that staff report. Make sure it's the right staff report. And I'm just thinking, like, 5 years later, 10 years later, sometimes it's a little more difficult to chase things down. If you change something, then we're going to have to put it in your minutes, because sometimes we'll say, like, we added a condition tonight on the plat. So for that one, I think it could get confusing, because it's going to say with all the conditions in the staff report and with this additional change or addition, or if you reword, sometimes you reword like number 5 to say this, we'll have to put that in your minutes, because it's not going to be the same in the report, right? So the plus to putting it in the minutes is that it's all there in one tidy package, and you don't have to kind of put the pieces together later on. But like I said, they're your minutes, so ideally we want to do it the way that you as a body want to see it done, and we're happy to do it that way. So
I don't have,
Yeah, so what's the argument for not having them in the minutes?
too much to read.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't my argument, I'm guessing
I
that's the reason,
like
paper, wasted
having them in the
paper, too
minutes,
much.
I
because
do
when we
too.
say we're approving with conditions,
I
it is
don't-
nice to have a,
I'm not way heavy on
Concise.
either
Who
side.
started this? What's happening?
the one who's not here. But I mean,
Yeah. Does that require any kind of a vote, or we just kind of agree to?
if you all are in agreement, I'm happy with that. And what I hear you saying right now is that you're perfectly fine to have all the conditions in the minutes.
Yes.
I think it's
It's whatever's
pretty
easiest
I'm
for
just
the
trying
staff.
to avoid being called
An
in
easy
to
reference
talk
point.
about it later in 5 years. So if this helps, that's great.
It helps us.
We're
We'll
not
take
the
your,
ones going back to check the records,
That's you guys, so
it makes it easier for y'all, by all
Exactly.
means.
I think it's fine. I'd prefer it.
Pardon?
Okay.
I mean,
All right, that's
the same
good. And then there was
conditions.
one other thing, and I think that's been corrected. It had to do with the vote record. Okay, so if it was unanimous, saying 9-0 is great. But if we, call the roll because somebody voted against, then we want to be able to put everybody's, who voted how.
And we did that. So you had items 1, 2, and 3 that we talked about Monday, and we went back in and made sure that you had the motion, the second, and there was one, I think the vote was 2 to 3 or 2 to 5, something like that. And so we put in there who voted for and who voted against the motion.
We want to keep.
And we'll keep doing that.
That's all I have for that. Any other
New bit.
staff
Even
communications? This meeting is
Skipped other,
adjourned.
hey, you skipped other business.
What other business?
The other business that I have.
Oh, excuse me, I didn't know.
Okay, I was just waiting my turn, I'm
Point
sorry.
of order, make a point of order.
I just wanted to ask, I guess, publicly, if we could, or is there a timetable for us to revisit the mural?
ordinance, or the ordinance that prohibits murals, particularly given recent events in the council, or it's not in council yet, whatever, anyway.
Going to council.
Thank you, it is BZA, going to council. Do we have an idea of when we might be able to do that as a group? Because I think we could have avoided a lot of heartache for a lot of folks if we had already tackled it.
Because it was a great presentation.
It was a
It
great
was.
presentation.
Sure. So last year you had a presentation in 2021, and then the council, in the last meeting that they had, they asked for staff to bring some information, make a very brief presentation, I believe, at the next, I think it's committee of the whole meeting? Yeah. So that would be next Monday, or Tuesday, the 15th, I believe it is, right? So it'll be
15th.
brought up then, and then the council will have the opportunity to decide if they want to direct staff to proceed with something in particular.
But now, we do not have to,
Wait on them, do we?
we can take our own initiative as well and send them proposals.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance talks about who can initiate a
Yeah.
text amendment, and that includes the city council, it includes the planning commission, and I think property owners in particular, it mentions something along those lines.
Well, what I mean is, we had a good presentation. There was a great deal of consensus about that presentation on this board. Therefore, it would seem to me, it would behoove us to go ahead, revisit that, have you present that back to us at some work session. Let us have further discussion and be prepared to respond appropriately to the circumstances. In other words, we are a planning commission, and we need to get ahead of the curve. The curve right now, we're behind it.
Sure. I would just suggest that since the council is going to have a discussion about it in their next meeting, which is just next week, it might make sense to wait to see what they discuss and if they have a particular perspective. I don't know if they're going to say proceed with exactly what was talked about last year, or if they're going to take a different, approach to that. But it might make sense just to hold off to see what the outcome of that is. But it's against your call.
So they'll be given the exact presentation that we were given last year?
No, it's just going to be bring it up as a discussion point, I think, talk about where we are today and how do we want to proceed with this if we want to
Okay,
make a change.
great, got it, thank you.
But if we as a commission decide that we would like to vote, have a vote on it and present it to council for them to resolve,
Yeah, this group
it's in our
can,
purview to do that?
you can decide, depends on the nature of the question, I guess, but
We're
yes,
not-
you all can recommend and initiate a text amendment at any
Yeah.
time.
We're not having anything to do with the current issue at all, the current mural. What some of us believe at least, that we need to have in place an ordinance that allows for, under certain circumstances, and a process for providing that, murals in the city, not taking into consideration what's happening at the time. So it's just brought it to our attention again that we haven't moved it forward. So,
I suspect we'll get some sort of help from the city council.
well, I think, I'd like to know what they're thinking, yes,
Right,
but I
right.
still say that
We should be.
We
moving
move forward regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
amen, that's good.
Not trying to do their work for them at all, just provide them the benefit of our study.
Yeah, so that would be helpful if you could dust that off and maybe we can put it into the work plan and.
It's on the list of things to do, because really, you'd mentioned it before, and so it's on my dry erase board for things to look at in 2022.
Okay,
So this will help us figure out that plan.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Anybody
Chairman.
else? No problem. Anybody else? Okay, now I adjourn the meeting.